Hello, everybody. My name is Joel Filderman, and welcome to the Dog Trainers Connection. I'm not a dog trainer, but these other people you see here are, and together they have many years of experience in the dog training world. We get together. I'll usually ask a question, get some answers, some thoughts, and sometimes come up with some solutions. And today we've got a special guest, a new member for a panel, and that's Wes Barrington Artope. Wes is the former Assistant Executive Director of the New York Center for Animal Care and Control. And he currently is a behavior specialist and dog trainer with his own company called Petology. And welcome to the panel, Wes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So to get started today, the topic that I'd like to discuss and the question, well, I was watching our local news recently, and there's yet another bill that they're talking about. And this one I found interesting. They're talking about banning the sale of commercial pets from pet stores. They're trying to, of course, eliminate backyard breeders and illegal breeders and et cetera. And I thought, wow, okay, that's a great idea. But then I started doing some more research, and I found that, well, first off, the AKC is not a big fan of it. They actually have a recent blog post, or fairly recent blog post, where they talk about that it's a little bit more complicated than that it's not just these pet stores that you think of. For example, in this town of Hempstead, they're defining a pet store as an establishment owned and operated by a person who sells, transfers more than 6 dogs in a year, or transfers 9 dogs that have been bred. For example, a person who has a large litter of 10 puppies and gives away, transfers 9 dogs would be defined as a pet store. And then I also found that, yes, California has already done this, Maryland has already done this, but there are a lot of towns and municipalities that are talking about doing this. And I found an article as well about Chicago, which had done it, but there are ways around it that they're basically buying people or buying credentials to say that the dogs are rescue dogs, not commercially bred. So my question to you is this today. Are we over-regulating things with dog training or with dogs? And in particular, are we over-regulating this whole thing about how people get dogs? There's a lot of regulation now about how people get dogs. And so, Wes, let me start with you as the former, the New York Center, et cetera, as I said before. So let me start that question with you today.
Okay. I mean, it's an interesting question. And the thing about it is that since I've worked in shelters for quite a while, from the age of 18 years old or earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And so dealing with it from that aspect, and also dealing with it from the dog trainers' perspective in regards to, training dogs commercially and residentially, I see, that it can be, it has its positives and negatives. I mean, yes, I think that we are stepping in a little much too, and there's an over-regulation of things. But, pet stores, to me, I mean, they're not looking at it the same way in regards to placement of their animals and in regards to the type of dogs that they're putting out as far as the breeds and the quality of the dogs.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that a lot of times either they don't know or they're being disingenuous in regards to what the dogs actually have in regards to traits and character and all those things. So I think that the pet stores should be regulated a little bit more, because also we're dealing with dogs that are coming out with many medical issues.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that because the regulation within inside the pet store isn't good enough, you know. And so in regards to the pet stores, yeah, I mean, I think it should be regulated a little bit more than it is right now, because that way I think people can get, at least have more of a chance to get a quality animal if
Hmm.
they are going to go the pet store route.
Right.
You know, so I just started off that way, and I have more to say, but I think the regulation there would be a little bit better if they had a little bit better regulation over the pet stores.
And Jeff, how about you? You do a lot of rescue. What do you think about that?
So, I mean, this kind of ties into an episode we did some time ago about banning the sale of dogs, and pet stores only allowed to sell rescue animals. I guess it ties into a little bit of that, and I
I
guess
think that was more about breeds, but that's okay.
no, we talked about the bill, didn't we?
Yes.
Wasn't about breeds. There was a bill presented in New Jersey about banning the sale of dogs in pet stores, and they're only allowed to sell rescue dogs.
Yes, you're right. I stand corrected.
So this is kind of the same thing. And I guess to go back to ask you a question, Joel, is do you know who the sponsor of the bills were in each state?
I know that they were state senators in both.
Okay, and now I'm just so everybody knows, because I'm about to enter a realm
Okay.
of the insanity. I was a lifelong Democrat. I am now a registered independent, and I have no intention of becoming a conservative either. Okay, so this is, we have to see politically who are sponsoring these bills.
Mhm.
If it's more regulation, my guess is it's the party that I left 4 years ago, the Democratic Party, because they generally, and again, this is a generalization. I don't know the specific bill you're talking about. I do know the bill we talked about a few episodes ago was Democratic driven.
Okay.
So your opening line was, are we regulating dogs too much?
Yeah, that's more what I'm talking about
Yeah,
today.
it should just be, are we regulating too much? Period.
Mhm.
Eliminate dogs from the equation. And now keep in mind, everybody knows I'm dog shit knee deep in rescue, right?
Right.
Whether I have my own rescue or I'm working with other rescues dogs. So I have to separate myself from that to talk about this, because as far as my rescue hat is concerned, no pet store should sell dogs, period.
Mhm.
I don't care what breed. Now, I have friends who are responsible breeders. I won't get into that debate here. But if pet stores are, if they're going to ban the sale of dogs in pet stores, I'm talking about retail establishments, you just ban them, period. You don't say they can only sell rescue dogs, because that just opens up the world to a whole nother level of, I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm cynical, but, who's to say these rescue dogs that they're selling, crooks, manipulators, whatever. So, as far as suggesting that, a person who's been breeding Keeshonds for 30 years and has a long track record of responsible breeding and placement, to put restrictions on them, regardless of how I feel from the rescue standpoint, I think it would be unfair for to have that person's life, passion, and revenue impacted because there's a bunch of jackasses selling sick puppies, year after year. So that's kind of where my mind goes.
Well, I just wanted to say I had read, I did look this up for a quick minute, and an assembly member in New York, Linda B. Rosenthal, I think she's in Manhattan, she's sponsoring the bill, and she goes on to say puppy mills are filthy, disgusting places where dogs are bred over and over and over again, resulting in offspring that are genetically damaged. And what I'm thinking is, why don't they really go after the puppy mills? And I'm not sure why they can't address that and just shut them down. I don't think it's about pet stores. Maybe pet stores do get them, commercial pet stores get them from puppy mills, but puppy mills are the real places that these legislators should be trying to shut down.
Well, the thing is, Bonnie, is that if you look at a lot of the people and all the sites, a lot of the sites that are against these bills, a lot of them are saying that. But so.
Yeah, but you got to remember too is any puppy that winds up for sale at a pet store,
yes,
whether it comes from a puppy mill or not, they're not coming from responsible breeders.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and again, I have friends who are responsible breeders, you know,
okay,
that I've gotten to know over the course of my career. And I mean, they place their dogs more carefully than rescues. Now, I'm not justifying breeding. That's not what I mean here.
Sure.
But I mean, their dogs live better than half the dogs I know. They place their dogs more carefully than half the rescues that I know. So I think going to the retail outlet first, it stops the bleeding a little bit. But again, I mean, the root cause, obviously, you know, if they're trying to stop puppy mills, that's where you got to go. But again,
right.
it doesn't stop the supply chain, because then you got backyard breeders. And I mean,
but Jeff, listen to this. I'm just reading. She said that animals who are not purebreds tend to have fewer health problems.
so what's that got to do with the bill?
Because that's what she's saying, why she wants to get rid of pet stores that sell pet
I
dogs.
mean, I definitely don't think that's not a good reason for it. And what you were saying, like, maybe it's not even maybe. Many pet stores get back or getting them from sources that are not reliable. Many pet stores get the dogs from puppy mills. That's not maybe, that's definite.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that over and over and over. So not only does it really hurt the quality of animal, whether they're purebred or not, but also the amount of disease transmission, okay, from some of these sources is terrible, and the animals end up with a lot of issues, behaviorally and medically. So,
I would agree with what you're saying. I've seen that myself, just with some of the clients I've worked with. I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely jump on the bandwagon with what you're saying. Definitely. And I think you just have to, the whole supply chain, if you will. I think there's got to be, I don't know if regulations is the right word, but there's got to be some steps involved and some policies involved along the whole chain that's pretty much consistent throughout the whole chain, so to speak. Because there's to blame. You could blame the puppy mill. Yeah, there's some blame there. There's some blame on the retail end. There's blame everywhere. You can't just pinpoint one area. And you know,
but I don't think that regulate. I mean, it's in regards to should they sell pure breeds or I mean, I don't think it's right just to sell dogs that are rescue animals either. It just needs to be regulated in regards to the quality of animal that comes out of the pet store, if they're going to allow it or not. I don't really agree with the bill in regards to that it can't be purebred animals. It has to be rescue animals, because then, yeah, I know that we're satisfying someone else's political, direction, and
Sure.
I think that's crap too. I mean, look at the animals now. All these down south animals that are coming up. I mean, this is we already know this is satisfying other people's pocket and agendas.
Sure.
So those are my feelings.
Okay.
I don't see how she even approaches the fact that she brings up health as it relates to mixed breed dogs. Bonnie, can you read that statement from the bill?
Well,
I don't think that's actually true either. I think I read an article recently that that's not true what she's saying.
Not true.
the first paragraph is puppy mills are filthy, disgusting places, and then resulting in offspring that are genetically damaged. And then that animals who are not purebreds tend to have fewer health problems.
That's a trick. That's a trick, right?
Meaning what, Steve?
Tend to have is
Then
what
she says but for those who want a particular type of dog, cat, or rabbit, there are reputable breeders out there. Then she goes on, research a breeder and make sure that you can go on their site and visit that breeder, etc.
You sure she's not talking about Washington?
Steve, what do you mean by that's a trick?
Because if you go to the Darwin thing is random selection produces the hardiest type, right?
Sure.
So obviously, if it's really a mixed up breed, mixed breed, then it's probably less likely to have genetic something. But if we're talking like Cavapoo or something like that, there's enough Cavalier for those Cavapoo mixes to have cardiac disease.
Mhm.
Or poodle knees, or so tend might be the right word, but it's not a sure thing in terms of health. And the other thing is this: if you break it down, if somebody wants a purebred dog, and they go to, let's say they have a time frame that they want to bring a puppy in their house.
Okay.
And they do the research, and you got to find a breeder that's got the puppy type that you want, that's the age that you need at the time that you need it. And then you get on the phone with these people who really care where their dogs go, and you get the rigmarole. It's like, okay, send me your W-2 form. Do you have a fenced yard? All this, how old are your kids? And, these are all good questions and stuff. But it's like Wes says, if you can't get it from one place, you're going to go somewhere else.
Sure.
This whole thing's driven by money, obviously. So if you want a dog and you can't get it from a breeder in the time frame, or you can't find a breeder that's going to play ball with you, you're going to find a place to get a dog. And where are you going to go? There's enough of these stores where you can just go to a store and look at a bunch of puppies. And were they well bred? No. Did they come from breeders like they tell you they do? No. Right? So they're not honest right from the get-go, because any breeder we know that's a real breeder would never sell their puppies to a pet store to end up going somewhere that nobody knows. They don't behave that way. We know that. These people act like they gave birth to these puppies themselves, and they're going to do the right thing as best as they can to place those puppies. Makes it very difficult for Joe Schmo to get a dog. Forget about even spending the time to do the research to get a good quality dog.
Mm-hmm.
Get one. It's a lot easier to pile your family into the minivan and go drive to the mall and pick one up right then and there, a little bit of money. They don't much know about genetics, or maybe they don't even care.
Right. They like the cute dog that's in the window, as the old song goes.
Right. They want to see it. I've said to people, listen, you could import a nice dog sight unseen. You just got to trust your person, from the country of origin and all that. And they're like, no, I want to see it. I want to touch it. I want to feel the hair or whatever it is. People are like that. So the idea that Wes has, which is if rather than crush the puppy mill,
mm-hmm.
put the regulations on them to do the right thing if they're going to commercially breed dogs, so that there's somebody who oversees that in a health way, in a genetics way, that their foundation dogs for breeding are well done, well bred in the first place and all that, and that there's a sensible thought process to the breeding of these dogs, not just throw them in a cage with some wire bottom and not take care of them and breed 12-year-old dogs. If they take care of these places, they don't have to shut them down. They just need to fix it up so that they're not selling to stores, or wherever you want to call them, pet stores, messed up dogs in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because there's not enough honest breeders that are going to satisfy the need for these puppies. Now, if there was going to be any kind of legislation at all, maybe it should be that you can't get a dog at all if you don't pass some kind of test in the first place, because maybe you shouldn't get a dog, because maybe you can't afford a dog. Maybe your dog's going to end up in the shelter 4 months from now because you didn't know what the whole story was about, because you didn't take a test, because you didn't have to read a little book to drive. You got to know the rules of the road. People could just go buy a dog. There's something wrong with that in the first place.
But aren't there always going to be ways around that, particularly in this day and age with the internet?
Yes, but I think that you can minimize it if you hold people accountable.
Okay.
And make people, like Steve said, have to meet a certain criteria to own an animal. And now, if we're gonna be overbearing as far as regulation, let's start there, because
mm-hmm.
the thing about it is that even with selling the rescue animal, how does that make it any better? And I'm not putting rescue organizations down. I have the highest respect for anyone who tries to rescue animals, but the quality of animal in regards to medical and behavioral is not great either. Okay, and what we're putting out, because and I'm sure many of the dog trainers can tell you that. I see rescue animals, I see pure breeds, all right, and I see crap in both. Okay, I see people at the rescue organizations that put animals in pet stores. Okay, and the quality that they're putting out, I'm telling you, is not great medically a lot of times, but of course behaviorally, because first of all, they're not honest about where the dogs came from, what the issues were when they got there. And I'm even talking about the puppy, 10-week-old puppy. There's people that give away animals that are even 12 weeks that had issues in regards to aggression, even possession aggression, resource guarding, and they're not honest. Now that family that Steve says that jumps up in the car, they go to the pet stores who are now selling rescue animals with that cute little puppy who's not displaying that until they probably get into the home and the honeymoon period's over. Then they're getting an animal that's displaying that aggression, and now they're attached to the dogs, okay? And a lot of the time, the pet stores and the rescue groups knew it. But they had to handle that dog. They put the food in, took the food out, took the toys out. They know the dog tried to eat their hand off. They don't say anything.
But Wes, the breeder too. The breeder will also sell you a dog for many thousands.
So that's what I'm saying. It can't just be. That's why I don't agree with the bill in regards to that. As far as where you can't have breeding, only sell rescue animals, because there's just as much crap in regards to that.
Well,
So I don't disagree with what Steve or West are saying regarding, minimum requirements for pet ownership and stuff like that, that the bar needs to be raised. So let's put things in perspective.
Okay.
Let's talk about the bar, where the bar is currently set nationwide. Just about every municipality across the country, okay, the minimum requirements to own a dog is that you must provide food, water, and shelter.
Oh.
That's it, okay?
Yeah.
So if we're going to talk about minimum requirements, let's start there, because America does not treat our pets properly. And law enforcement, when it comes to, and I hate to talk about animal cruelty, but you kind of have to if we're talking about minimum requirements to own a pet. Law enforcement's hands are tied because the minimum requirements to own a pet are horrible. It's just horrible. That's all. I mean, if you're providing food, water, and shelter for your animal, that's it.
we could raise the bar, Jeff.
Right. That's my point.
Yeah, both but medically and behaviorally. I mean, that's the other thing too. With all these politicians, where are they getting the information? They're coming up with all these different regulations because they hear, the dog is sick, or it's going to the wrong home, they're having behavioral issues, whatever it is. But so it's like, we got to put a bill in place to address this. But how do they know how to address it? So my point being is maybe they need to get to speak to people like us, like dog trainers,
Right.
and or some behaviorists and some veterinarians, so they can address both the medical side as well as behavioral side.
Right.
And come up with a panel of two different groups of minds that can maybe meet with these legislators or whatever,
Right.
to come up with something, a good plan.
100%.
Because just to put something on there just blanketly,
Yeah.
it's
Exactly right. Exactly.
That's very true. And I'm not sure what you were saying, Steve, about the puppy mills and putting regulations in place. My mind went to, that's a big business. The reason they're making so much money is because they're doing unethical things with the dogs. Are they really going to follow regulations?
It's that or disappear, get put out of business,
It should be.
shut them down. Now the pet stores get shut down, the puppy mills get shut down. It's gonna, they have basically one choice: do the right thing or be taken away. That's it. The problem is if you take them, look, if you go backwards, the people who bitch about purebred dogs basically say you can't breed purebred dogs because there's too many dogs in the world. So what does that mean? It's okay to have mixed breed dogs, or it's not okay to, flip it around. The purebred dog people is like, oh no, you can't have those mixed breeds. That's racism. You can't tell them that. That's not right. right? So you got to like, there's a balance of things, you know, this whole thing about, oh, it's a mixed breed dog. You better sterilize it because you better not get pregnant because there's already too many of those. I'm like, too many? I don't know. You can't do it that way. You can't, you know, you can't beat down the purebred dog industry. It's a powerful one. Back in the old days, it was a more necessary one because people used the dogs for the work. You know, it's less important now because people basically now it's become some sort of a status thing. Unfortunately, bad for the dogs because a hound's still a hound, right?
Yeah.
And a Rottie's still a Rottie. So you know what? It's sad for the dogs that's the way, but that's the way it is. And if a person does in fact need a dog or have a clear mind about the type of dog they should have, they should be able to get it, right? Especially if the bar is raised and they do the right thing. It's not just food, water, shelter. It's like, you know, something about medical. You know, this morning I saw on the internet on the news that a dog, it was shipped from South Korea, rescue dog from South Korea to Canada. And the dog was found having a new strain of parvo or distemper, you know, crazy bad virus kind of thing. I'm like, great. Right. Now we're importing diseases we don't have vaccines for from foreign countries. Now, do I feel bad for those dogs? I do. But there's a risk. There's a risk when you start messing around with this stuff. Whoa, we're getting them from the Philippines and the Cayman Islands. I mean, I've seen everything already. And if they're healthy, okay. But if they're dogs from the beach that were never in the city, what are they doing in the city? That's not rescuing a dog. You know, so there's so much non-clarity in this whole thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know that legislation is a bad thing if they get it right. And that's like Dave says. It's like, you know what? They need to talk to somebody. They need to talk to lots of somebodies to try to understand the right approach to take. And if you're going to put some effort into bills, what are the important issues so that you approach it right? You don't start crushing stores and these commercial breeding establishments. Just you're gone. How's about if there is a demand? Obviously, there's zillions of dollars are being spent, so people are buying them, like it or not. Right. Better to try and make it so that the puppies are healthy and better bred, and this way that the ultimate buyer gets a okay puppy as best as possible, Wes, right? Because you just never know. You know, at the best of breeders, you can get a freak. You know, I mean, that's just the way it is. And so, but a breeder should stand behind the freak that they sell you, right?
Exactly.
If a breeder sells you a dog and then you go to the vet and the dog's got a heart murmur, I like to think a lot of breeders would stand behind that puppy and do something to help you out, pay for the cardiologist or whatever it is. Would a pet store do that? And if not, maybe they need to be forced to do something like that. That there's like a legitimate, some sort of, it's hard to call it a guarantee. We're not talking about a call, but just to have some backup, you know, so that there are consequences if you happen to end up with a dog within a certain period of time. You know, the hip thing and all that, no matter where you go, I mean, no matter who's doing it, you can end up with some genetic abnormality, especially in purebred dogs. That's the way it rolls, right? You know, that genetics thing is really plagues purebred dogs, but something.
Okay. So we've been talking about this a while, and Bonnie, I'm going to ask you: are we overregulating, or do we need more regulation?
I was just thinking that, and maybe it's back to a political thing that Jeff brought up at the beginning. To me, if you have a dog food company that keeps selling tainted products that are getting dogs sick and dogs are dying from, and these are huge corporations, I'm not sure that you could regulate puppy mills to have them raise sound and healthy dogs, because I think it's business. And my mind also went to, well, who's pushing this Linda Rosenthal for this bill? Who's behind that? And what's in it for them? I think West brought that up too, that it's all going back to who's benefiting, whose pocketbook it's going to line. And
okay. Yeah.
That's where my mind went. Do I have an answer? I would love regulation, but as David said, with the right people being involved and not for political gain or monetary gain.
Steve, same question.
Well, you know, regulation's always tricky, but if it helps the dogs out in the end, I'm all for it. But it's got to help the dogs. and you got to come up with the right way to do that. And I'm not sure. I've never been a puppy mill fan, but it's because of the way they behave. It's all those hideous videos you see. It's the way they treat the dogs. If there was a different situation, if I was looking at videos of like really super clean, gigantic, lit up, air conditioned and heated, running water, clean runs, a real staff, a medical staff on board, that would work for me.
Sure.
You don't have to breed one breed or 3 breeds. You can breed 50 breeds, but do it right. Just do it right. And it might cost them more money. Maybe they'll make a little less profit, but I think the only way to go. Otherwise, they should get shut down.
Okay. And David, same question, more or less.
Yeah, like Steve was saying, I think if you could get the right, policies in place, I think it's a good thing. But I think some of these governing bodies are very powerful, and to break through to that, that whole process, it could be tough. They're not going to talk to a dog trainer necessarily, or a behaviorist or whatever, because who are you? You're just a little drop in the water, what have you. So it's
we're the guys who know.
right, exactly. It's like we're just like a little ant. It's a.
I'm going to regret asking this, but Jeff, do we need more or less regulations?
So I mean, I don't exactly know who currently oversees, let's just call them puppy mills for this particular conversation. But I mean, there's got to be some minimum requirements. And, I just think of a restaurant, going to a restaurant, some restaurants, their maximum occupancy is 30 people. Other restaurants, it's 80 people. They have to have a minimum health rating, right, from the health department. So, I'm sure there's something on the books already that we're not enforcing, because it's been my experience, especially in the animal community, when some suit and tie comes up with a new law, we already have one in place that's not currently being enforced. So I would start there, and I personally, I think I just, puppy mills, they make me sick to my stomach. I'm sorry.
Okay. And Wes? Last.
And I agree with a lot of things everyone is saying. I don't think we need more. I think we need the proper type of regulation. Okay, right now. I don't think it's that great. I think that pet stores, because they're at the forefront of attracting people that are not as understanding about animals and what they should get or shouldn't get and how to handle them, that of course we have to regulate them more, but it certainly shouldn't be based on whether they be purebreds or rescue animals at all. Okay. Of course, for years we've always had to regulate puppy mills better. And people just have to do their jobs. Okay. And if you see someone that's putting animals out, if you hear things, they need to actually get in there and make it happen, and not just be paid off. There's a lot of people that are puppy mills that I'm certain that authorities know about, but they let it slide.
Oh, of course they do.
Could be some of their family. So we have to become responsible as a community to actually oversee, dogs in general, so that we can put out a better product and stop getting the backlash, which is going to constantly be a domino effect, and end up back in the shelter, it's crazy. And it's not just pet stores, it's rescue groups just the same. I've seen it. I've been there. People don't always do things maliciously, but they do things out of ignorance, and then they think that's proper, and it's not.
Okay, well, I really want to thank all of you for being here. I think, as always, it was a very interesting discussion. I haven't said this in a while, but as Steve always says, it's complicated. So I really want to thank everybody for being here. I think definitely some interesting points brought up today. I want to thank everybody for watching today, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot now. Bye-bye.
See ya.
See you later.
Thank you.